Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Good morning, fellow commissioners. First Assistant Chief Choi, Executive Director Django Sibley, Inspector General Matthew Barragan, Managing Senior Assistant City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, Madam Secretary, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Shield, Garcia, and Scobin are present, and we have a quorum.
Oh. And I think Commissioner Tabor's going to be here shortly. Sorry about that, I jumped the gun. But we welcome everyone attending this morning, both in person and online. We want to ensure all members of the public can access our meetings. So if you need any translation services or accommodations, we encourage you to contact the board secretary in advance of our meetings, as explained in our written agenda. These meetings are regular meetings between the board and the department. We welcome feedback from the public during the public comment period, which will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board. You can speak to any item on the agenda or any matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Each member of the public can have a total of up to 3 minutes to speak if you wish to speak on both agenda items and general public comment as explained in the written agenda. While we welcome public attendance at our meetings, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and will be cause for removal. You will receive just one warning, and if you continue disrupting the meeting, you will be asked to leave and be removed from the meeting. With that, we can move to item number 1 on the agenda, the report of the Chief of Police, Assistant Chief Choi.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Inspector General Barragan, City Attorney De La Guerra, and Executive Director Sibley. Today, I'll cover the 1-week period from the prior week. I'll highlight key events, share our current crime statistics, and provide an update on our current staffing levels. But before I start, I want to follow up on some questions that the Commission had from last week's meeting. So first, regarding the No Kings 3.0 protest that occurred on March 28th, the Commission requested additional information on the use of less lethal munitions and the number of complaints associated with that event. So during that incident, the department personnel deployed 5 37mm baton rounds and 9 FN 303 rounds, and to date, 2 complaints have been initiated in connection with that protest. Additionally, the Commission requested information regarding an incident in Hollenbeck Division that circulated on social media, which was believed to involve students from a local art school being detained on their graduation day. That incident is the subject of a personnel complaint, so I can't get into the details about that, but I just want everyone to know that we take these complaints very seriously. Both the Chief of Police and I personally have reviewed the body-worn video, and I will personally stay up to date on the progress on that complaint. Okay, moving on to this week's activity. So, officer-involved shooting on April 8th at approximately 9:40 a.m. Central Division uniform officers were patrolling the area of Central Avenue and Town Avenue when they saw a newer model BMW wanted for a felony crime. The officers followed the vehicle onto the 5 freeway while requesting additional units. When the BMW began to accelerate away in an apparent attempt to evade the officers initiated a vehicle pursuit. Approximately 1 minute later, the BMW turned onto Olympic Boulevard, the off-ramp. It made a U-turn and drove abruptly towards the officers. That vehicle collided head-on with an oncoming police vehicle. After the BMW came to a stop, the driver, later identified as Jesus Ernesto Jaime, exited the driver's seat and stood behind the vehicle. Responding officers issued verbal commands for Jaime to surrender. Jaime refused to comply and instead removed a semi-automatic handgun from his waistband and pointed it at an officer, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. Jaime was struck by gunfire and fell to the ground. He was taken into custody without further incident and moved to a waiting Los Angeles County Fire Department paramedic who declared him deceased at scene. An additional passenger inside the BMW complied with officers' commands to surrender and was taken into custody without incident. 2 officers were transported to a nearby hospital where they were treated and released for injuries sustained during the traffic collision. A loaded 9mm semi-automatic Glock handgun was recovered from the scene. Additionally, a loaded .357 Magnum Astra revolver was recovered from inside the BMW. Both weapons were booked as evidence. No further community members were injured during this incident. Force Investigation Division investigators responded to the scene and are investigating the incident. So year to date, we're at 6 officer-involved shootings compared to 10 officer-involved shootings at the same point last year. I'm going to give you an update on a couple protests that we monitored and responded to during the prior week. So for the week of April 6th or April 11th, the department managed 2 protest-related events. So Saturday, April 11th, the National F Ice Day protest occurred in Central Area with an estimated attendance of approximately 125 individuals who gathered in front of the Federal Detention Center. During the event, several criminal incidents occurred, including assault with a deadly weapon and felony vandalism. Protesters threw rocks at officers, as well as spray-painted walls and sidewalks in the area. An unlawful assembly was declared due
Chief
to
Troy,
repeated acts.
can you please pause? Ma'am and sir in the back, can you please either take a seat, and there's some conversations in the audience. If you can take it outside, this will avoid us having to disrupt the meeting, but thank you.
An unlawful assembly was declared due to the repeated acts of vandalism and protesters blocking the roadway, which caused vehicles to drive into opposing lanes of traffic, creating a danger to both demonstrators and motorists. Most of the protesters dispersed upon the order. Of those that remained, a total of 5 adults were arrested for failure to disperse, 3 adults were arrested for felony vandalism, and 1 adult was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. No kinetic energy weapons were used during this incident. No officers reported injuries during the operation. The suspect arrested for assault with a deadly weapon fell and struck his head on the ground while attempting to flee from officers. A use of force investigation was completed in connection with that arrest. The suspect received medical treatment and was then booked. In a separate incident, another arrestee who had been arrested for failure to disperse experienced a possible seizure or drug overdose while at Central Station. That individual was transported by ambulance to a medical facility, treated by a doctor, and released for booking without further incident. In addition, on the same day, April 11th, a separate protest occurred in North Hollywood area. Approximately 50 individuals attended the demonstration titled Studio City Rising. This event remained peaceful and dispersed on its own without incident. Then moving on to some memorable or good arrests good police work that the officers did this week. So Devonshire provided Metropolitan B Platoon with information regarding a suspected burglary crew operating in the area and referred to them as the Ford Edge Crew. Through their investigation, B Platoon officers were able to identify 2 vehicles associated with the crew and began to monitor their activity using investigative and surveillance techniques. On April 10th, the suspect vehicles were observed in the area of a gated community within Devonshire Division. The officers saw the suspects running from the community carrying bags. A follow-up investigation confirmed that a residence within the community had been burglarized, with the suspects gaining entry through the rear sliding door and ransacking the location. Officers continued to monitor the vehicles and conducted a traffic stop. 4 suspects who were inside the vehicle were taken into custody without incident. Property taken during the burglary was recovered, including a large amount of currency, luxury purses, and jewelry. In addition, officers obtained and served 2 search warrants at locations associated with the suspects, one in North Hollywood and one in the city of Compton. At the North Hollywood location, officers recovered multiple purses, passports, and cell phones. At the Compton location, officers recovered rare coins, radios, cold-plated license plates, and burglary tools. All 4 suspects were identified as Colombian nationals, and they were booked for burglary. On April 7th, Newton area robbery detectives identified 5 chain snatch robbery cases believed to be committed by the same suspect. Through their investigation, detectives identified the suspect as a 16-year-old juvenile. The suspect was identified through surveillance footage, witness statements, social media, and cell phone records. In each incident, the suspect approached victims and forcibly removed gold necklaces before fleeing the location. A Ramey warrant was obtained for the suspect's arrest, and he was subsequently taken into custody at his residence. During a search of the residence, detectives recovered a Glock 19 handgun, approximately $4,300 in currency, a cell phone, a magazine, and clothing worn during the robberies. The juvenile was booked for robbery at Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. The suspect has 2 prior arrests for robbery. And then on April 8th, Foothill Division officers responded to a radio call of a burglary suspect who had just fled the Sally Beauty store located at the 8300 block of Laurel Canyon Boulevard in a black SUV. The store employee informed officers that 3 bank deposit bags had been taken and that the property contained GPS tracking devices that were actively monitored by the company. The stolen property was tracked to an area within Central Division. Responding Central officers located a black Mercedes SUV matching the description. When officers attempted to stop the vehicle, the driver fled and a pursuit was initiated. Although the ground units briefly lost sight of the vehicle, the air unit maintained continuous observation. The suspects drove to the city of Linwood, where they abandoned the vehicle and fled on foot. A perimeter was established, and Metropolitan Division K-9 units responded to assist with the search. 3 suspects were located and taken into custody without incident. The suspects were identified as 2 juveniles and 1 adult. On April 10th, the district attorney's office filed 3 counts of burglary, 2 counts of grand theft, and 1 count of petty theft with a prior against the adult. The juvenile suspects were cited and released to the parents and provided court dates. Moving on to our crime. So year to date, combined persons and property crime are down 15.2%, which is a reduction of 4,857 crimes. Person crimes are down 3.4%, while property crimes are down significantly at 18.2%. With respect to homicides, the city has experienced a year-to-date decrease of 14.9%, down 10 less lives compared to 2025. Victims shot citywide are down 24.2%, a reduction of 64 victims, and firearm recoveries are up 15.4% compared to last year. Aggravated assaults are slightly up year-to-date, increasing by 1.2% or 47 incidents. A review of the increase has not identified any trends or patterns. Crimes involving our homeless community as well as domestic violence continue to drive this slight increase. Robberies are down overall 8.6% across the city compared to last year, and burglaries continue to show a significant decline, down 32.5%. Residential burglaries are down 33.9%, and non-residential burglaries are down 30.1%. Additionally, motor vehicle thefts are down 29.1%. Our personnel strength as of April 13th sworn is at 8621, civilian personnel is at 2450, and our reserve officers at 348. A total of 743 sworn employees, or 8.5%, and 335 civilian employees, 13.58%, are currently not available for full duty status, which include employees on IOD, long-term sick, FMLA, and duty restrictions. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Chief. I'll start with questions from my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Garcia.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Chief, for the report. Thank you for including in your report the incident that occurred with the youth in the Boa Heights, outside of the Boa Heights Arts Conservatory, and understanding that there's an investigation taking place, but wanted to just make a comment that I was also engaged in following up on the incident and have met with folks on the LAPD side and in the community side, and working with the Civil Rights Department to figure out what steps are needed in order to provide some healing and education. And so hopefully there's an opportunity for that to occur, and looking forward to your support on helping making that happen. Thank you.
Absolutely, we're committed to doing that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scobin.
Thank you, Chief, and I appreciate you circling back on information requests from last week's meeting. There's a few items I'd like to follow up with. First, in the commission meeting last December when you were here, we asked about the dramatic increase in officer-involved shootings in 2025, at which time there was a reluctancy to discuss what department or departments we'd reach out to for a comparison. In turn, you stated the departments were preparing a report for us on this. Happy to see that 2026 the trends appear to be in the opposite direction. We still haven't received that report. Can you let us know when we can expect to see that report?
I'll follow up on that. I can't give you an exact timeline now, but you will see it.
Thank you. Another topic, one area that seems to come to our attention with great frequency is the request, the CPRA requests. For our information and transparency, I'd like to request a presentation on the topic. I'd like the report to share the resources the department has dedicated to this and some of the following data points. One, the number of outstanding CPRA requests. Two, the number of outstanding CPRA requests that have exceeded the initial 10 business days that are allowed for a response to the request, but are within the additional 14 days that are allowed under unusual circumstances as defined by CPRA. Three, the number of outstanding CPRA requests, if any, that exceed the additional 14 days with the agreement or consent of the requester. And finally, the number of outstanding CPRA requests, if any, that exceed the additional 14 days without the consent or agreement of the requester. And I have these written down if we can share later.
I got it. Thank you.
And finally, on your report, great news on the crime trends and compliments to the officers for their great work. Do you know how these trends compare with both statewide and nationwide trends?
I don't, but we can get you that information.
Well, the news is good regardless, but thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Tabor?
I have no questions for Chief Joy today. So.
Thank you. And Chief, thank you for the report. And some of the questions that I had about the No Kings March from the last meeting also involved complaints involving journalists. And can you talk a little bit about, what the department has done, complaints received in connection with that, and what is the department doing to ensure that the journalists are being treated in compliance with the pending injunction, and also just to inform all of the officers on the ground what the proper protocols are with dealing with journalists at demonstrations?
Sure. So when the injunction initially happened, the chief of police issued a chief's notice back in September of 2025. That was distributed to all of our personnel to read, and it provided guidelines and requirements of what we needed to do. We have been deploying a lieutenant or above to these protests to communicate and have contact with media on the ground. And so if there's any type of dispute, whether somebody is media or not, there's a lieutenant from media that is able to interact with them. What's been happening recently is that if media does have complaints, they've been contacting one particular individual out of the press club. That person calls our professional standards bureau, and we file a complaint is taken, and those incidents are all investigated. I believe that our communication with the media has been improved since then, and we'll continue to do that. Currently, there's a educational video that Media Relations had just filmed that just went out yesterday morning to all our folks. It's part of our learning management system now, and all of our officers are going to be required to watch that video.
For people in the gallery, it's not your turn to talk yet. You will have an opportunity during public comment. But with regards to, so that's good to hear that there's some improvements there and more effort. To the extent that there are officers who are not calling a captain or calling a lieutenant as required, will any actions happen to them? Are they being, is there complaints being processed on that front?
So if we're aware of that and complaints have been made, all those will be investigated. All those allegations or reports will be investigated. And obviously, as you know, everything that we do is on body-worn video, and we also have media relations out there with the videographer videotaping these incidents as well.
Thank you. From the LA Times, we've learned about a pretty significant data breach that occurred that impacted the department. What can you tell us publicly about the status of that?
Well, publicly, I tell you, we are aware of it. We know that some of our departments, our employees' files were part of that breach. We don't know exactly what information was breached. However, we're working closely with the city attorney's office to get notification to anyone in our department that that has their personal information out there that was released. There's an active criminal investigation, so I can't get into the details behind it, but we are aware and we're trying our best to get our employees notified. I'd also like to just make it absolutely clear that LAPD systems or databases were not breached, they were not hacked, and the data was not released from any part of LAPD.
Thank you. And hearing about both, the significant arrests that occurred, commend the officers involved in that, and hearing about, a decline in crime. I just, want to make sure that it is truly like a decline in crime and not just a decline in reported crime. And given particularly the impact on the immigrant community, there's always a concern that, people are not calling the police because of concerns of cooperation with, federal agencies in connection with immigration. We will be, the board will be hearing a presentation from LA Sanctuary Coalition at a later board meeting. So we will hear kind of firsthand of some of the people's concerns and accounts. But can you talk a little bit about, and I know we'll have a more further discussion with on an immigration update, but what the department is doing just to try to encourage the immigrant community and anyone to actually report crimes that they are victims of.
Sure, absolutely. So, well, first of all, from Chief McDonald, from me, we encourage anyone who feels that they've witnessed a crime or a victim of a crime to report it to 911. Obviously, we all know if you don't report it, we're not aware of it and we can't do anything about it. So encourage everyone to call the police if a crime occurs. But on top of that, we have our Department Immigration Affairs liaison, our dial, that has been doing significant outreach to the communities with the SLOs that are assigned at every division that are also in charge of this education and information campaign. I won't go into too much detail because he's going to be Deputy Chief Hurtado is going to be giving a presentation next on that. But we've been doing significant outreach into the immigrant communities to let them know that first, let them know that we don't do anything with immigration enforcement. We don't ask about immigration status. We want them to trust us and report crimes so we can take the appropriate action.
Thank you. And Commissioner Garcia, did you have something?
Yeah, just a note. I'm going to be stepping away in a few minutes, and I'll be back as soon as I'm done with this other conversation that I have to have. Apologies.
Thank you. Okay, now with that, we will move to item number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Madam Secretary, please call on the first speaker.
The first speaker is Tran Son Ha.
Good morning, Chief Joyce, and thank you, and Chief Jim McDonald and everybody here. Again, I love you, and I came to Los Angeles here, and the world watching us in here. We fighting for right and safety for all human rights. And thank you for the LAPD headquarters and support me for that. And when we hear, like I say, the world watching us for the safety for all human rights, but please respect LAPD. And I have a lot of trouble with the police, but I still love them. I don't hear fight with them, but I just here for peace and love for America and around the world, and very important. And I love everybody. Please stand with me. Very important. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Next over Zoom, we have Star. Star, you're on.
Morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. Sorry. I would like to speak on all items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much for the detailed report. Appreciate it. Great police work by all of LAPD. I always just want to praise and thank LAPD for all the hard work they do and all the this crime and these pathetic people that they take off the streets. Now we have to worry about 16-year-olds with Glocks and robbing us and fear for our lives from teenagers. So great work, LAPD. Thank you for being the most diverse, the most hardworking, and just the most loyal police department in the country. We appreciate you. Thank you for all the new technology that's coming out with license plate readers, and I read new drones are coming out. I'm sure the celebrity that was almost gunned down with her kids a few weeks ago, I'm sure she appreciates the license plate reader technology that actually caught the suspect that almost wiped out her and her entire family. So thank you for that. We are the majority that support you, that appreciate you. You're not racist, you're not murderers. It's such an easy word to throw out now. And it has, it's a shame, but we know the truth. You are hardworking. Thank you for our safety. Thank you for always being there. And thank you for being diverse, and keep up the good work. Have a great day.
Our next speaker is Eric Anders.
My name is Eric Anders, a photographer who's been documenting LA's response to ICE since June. I'm here because I took a look at the report being delivered under the Mayor's Executive Directive 17, and it claims that there were 0 instances where the LAPD encountered any, quote, suspected unlawful conduct by immigration enforcement agents. We know that's an outright lie. You know that's a lie. I assume the mayor knows it's a lie. Who believes this? What is the point of any of this? What are we doing? March included March 28th, No Kings 3.0. Here's some suspected unlawful conduct by those immigration enforcement agents who you showed up to defend. They shot an 18-year-old photographer in the eye. I don't believe the LAPD didn't hear about that. They tear gassed hundreds of people in front of the MDC, including your officers, as they were kettling people on behalf of Homeland Security. They come and go all day long with no license plates, blacked out license plates, paper license plates they've clearly swapped with each other. Is it that you don't suspect it's unlawful conduct? You know it's unlawful conduct, and so therefore it doesn't have to go on the report? What semantic games are we playing here? So after all of that, you showed up on horseback. I witnessed your officers on horseback slam into a man, sending him flying. I later heard that he broke both wrists when he hit the ground. One officer on horseback had a massive knife strapped to the center of his chest. What is that? They hit people with wooden swords. What are we doing? On this past Saturday, at the protest you just described as full of criminal acts of vandalism, the LAPD showed up in force to stop people from tossing dildos over the fence. They hit journalists with batons. It's absurd to say that they arrested 5 people for failure to disperse. I watched those arrests happen. People were walking away, trying to follow the orders, and the officers ran into the crowd and snatched prominent on-the-ground activists. There were still dozens of people in the area trying to walk away, and they ran in and grabbed the visible organizers who have been there on the ground. Again, trying to leave. They later knocked a photographer over and arrested somebody on top of her. So to say that like we're doing better with journalists, like what are we doing? So my understanding is that later today, the commission will hear a presentation from the Inspector General about the LAPD's collaboration with immigration officers. I understand that you're probably just going to accept and transmit the report that claims 0 suspected unlawful conduct, but I hope that you will press the Inspector General about what they've learned, because they know what the LAPD is doing. You know it. We all know it. Are we really going to let everybody involved continue to just lie about their collaboration? Now is your chance. This report is your chance to stand up for the people. If they're about to rubber stamp what's been going on, I think you all lose whatever small shred of plausible deniability you still have. These are lies, and we all know it. I don't understand who this supposedly helps unless you support what's been going on, and that's shameful.
Next, we have Joey.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Joey Scott. I am a journalist here in Los Angeles. I have documented protests since 2020. I have met with the department, including Chief Michael Moore in the past, advocating for journalist protections from the LAPD. In that time, since 2020, I've noticed a continued increase of the mistreatment of journalists, so much so that they had to pass a state law. And now we are sitting 6 years later, and there's an injunction against how you continue to violate journalists' rights. I will say that since 2020, this has been the most violent the LAPD has ever been, especially towards journalists. The department has arrested journalists with press passes on. Just recently, at the recent protest, a journalist was kicked by a police officer. I want to make it clear that currently the department is violating state law. It is violating an injunction, and it is violating the department's own policies. They're able to do this because there's no accountability. So I'm asking the commissioners to do more than just require a report or take that an investigation is happening. Otherwise, this will continue to happen and nothing will change. I will say that I'm sick of seeing my colleagues beaten and arrested. I'm sick of seeing them yelled at and being told that they're wrong and they don't know the law. We know the law. We know how it works. A judge has even said that the department continues to violate journalists' rights. So I guess propose to you, what are you going to do about it? Otherwise, this will continue. More injunctions, more lawsuits, more injured journalists. And I truly ask that somebody do something, especially since the mayor won't or city council. This is your job. You represent the public and you represent the First Amendment right. And whatever improved relationships the deputy chief has said, that's not accurate. We continue to face the same problems out there. So I will continue to advocate for the safety of my colleagues and for, protecting our rights. And also about public records, the department sucks at them. I currently have multiple records open, some exceeding 2 to 3 years of being fulfilled. I've had to sue to get records from the department, and currently they are violating state law to provide me with records. So maybe the department can do a better job with journalists. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. The next speaker, Audit LA.
Good morning. I'm hoping eventually, while we wait for you guys to serve arrest warrants on David Miscavige, Kendrick Moxon, Kirsten Peterson, Linda Peters, and other people for all the crimes that they either have committed, overlooked, not reported, whatever. While we wait for that, which I hope will come soon, I'm here to talk to, can we at least get the permit situation? I know it seems small, but sometimes, big steps start with small steps, okay? Like the Easter event was a disaster, okay? And I did everything I could, because the Bureau of Street Services makes it very clear. You cannot block the sidewalk, even with the permit, and it may say closed sidewalk, it's not really closed. They're not allowed to prevent pedestrians, and that's on their second page. And I made sure that Bureau of Street Services, they put it in writing to me, yes, it has to be open, there has to be signs. I submitted it to the OIG, and thank you for the OIG's office. They always respond with, yes, we got so I appreciate your office. Always respond, no, I'm serious, I'm sorry. Don't let, this is my turn. Okay, I appreciate that. And when it comes to, I had sent it to the commission, to the police, to the Northeast Division, I forgot Central Bureau. And so here, Scientology, I guess, was able to shop for a cop and find a cop to override the permit, okay, which restricts my constitutional right to pass on a street, okay, on a sidewalk. I have that right. It's leaving the city liable to a lawsuit. I have so many opportunities now that I can sue the city for the violation of my First Amendment rights, because LAPD keeps enforcing Scientology's will over the law of the permit and what they can and can't do, and it's a real problem. And, and so I'm trying to do it, because like if Scientology can't obey permits, like if it's that to the point where they can't even obey that they will just snub and just absolutely do their will, whether they have a cop to help them or not, because they're still gonna close it, then how can we expect them to be, mandated reporters for child abuse, or how are we going to expect them to do what they need to do? They won't. You have so many victims, not just Laura, you have so many, hundreds, maybe over 1,000, that have come out with the same similar stories of abuse, neglect, medical neglect, child abuse, sex abuse, torture, being beaten, being put in a prison without due process, everything. So if we can't get them to even, that's why it sounds stupid to stick on something so minor, but it's not minor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lara FM.
Okay, I'm going to echo what Audit LA just said. When we had the Scientology on Easter, I'm not even going to say they had an event. They used Easter to put on an event to attract children and family members, especially people that are from other countries or that are on vacation visiting, or they're on some sort of visa temporarily. They literally promise people R1 visas by saying you can become a Scientologist and become part of our staff and you have an R1 visa. You don't have to worry about that. So there's forms of trafficking through Scientology that you're not aware of, but yet there's things like giving them permits that you could stop. Or when they sent out an officer, Officer Sook, who said, nope, he just overrid it and said, nope, the sidewalk can stay closed. That's not okay. No gang member, no organization, no business, no cult, no religion is allowed to override a permit or an issued, signed off city document 2 minutes or during an event. Unless it's an emergency. There was no fucking emergency. It's Easter. Scientology uses Easter to infiltrate and to get families recruited and then changes them into their, quote, religion. They just take people away from their own beliefs, their own strong family core, because they don't believe in children being children. They believe that children are allowed to do work, believe in, must do anything that an adult is doing, because children are just small bodies, big beings in small bodies. So imagine the pedophilia lines, the rape, all of that goes on, that just gets audited away through Scientology auditing. So you are allowing their events, their permitted events, and then covering up all the rape, pedophilia through Scientology auditing and these Way to Happiness books, which are literally the #1 way that they get kids and families into this cult. I gave you guys all of the front groups that they have. They had these all blown up all blown up on their Easter event. They don't believe in Easter. They don't believe in Jesus Christ. They use your city, your permits as a inside church recruitment tactics. This is disgusting for something they don't believe in. You guys use their money. You say they don't. You say Karen Bass isn't, supporting Scientology. She does. You guys should be speaking out about it. Why hasn't Karen Bass talked about the fact that she was on a stage of Scientology, sharing the stage with other human trafficking executives of Scientology? Why doesn't she speak out about why she was put up on there? Why do you guys not allow this? Why do you have to be afraid of an organization that you guys can actually expose? Because you're part of it. You're part of the allow.
Thank you. The next speaker, Jonathan Green.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. I'd like to talk about the Pacific Division Booster Club Carnival that is scheduled to be coming to the Palms community in May of this year. The last time this Booster Club event was held in Palms 2 years ago, a 16-year-old boy was stabbed to death at an event where LAPD officers were surrounding the whole event. And then the two murderers got away. They ran right past LAPD officers who did nothing to stop them. No one was ever caught for that crime. And as if that wasn't bad enough, that happened on the second day of the carnival. The carnival kept going the third day. They just kept going like nothing had happened. No statement was released. There wasn't even an apology. They wouldn't apologize to the community for that. And now they think that it's a good idea to bring this event back to Palms? You think the community is going to put up with that? And you should all know this. This all made the news. But I'll tell you something that you don't know. This event last time and this time was done in partnership with an organization called the Motor Avenue Improvement Association. It's headed up by a man named Lee Wallach. When organizers who were working with the Motor Avenue Improvement Association asked him to cancel the carnival on the third day, I have heard this from organizers who worked with him. His response to them was, "This kid didn't have any family, and if you knew who he was, you wouldn't care either." That was his response to a 16-year-old boy who was murdered at his event. And he is working on this event again this year. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with this guy. I've heard from multiple people in the community, including a former Palms Neighborhood Council board member, that he once threatened to punch a neighborhood council board member over a dispute that they were having. His organization used to have a speaking slot at the neighborhood council. They took it away because multiple women came forward and said that they had had experiences with him that made them feel uncomfortable and unsafe from his advances. He's also sent threatening messages to people in the Palms Neighborhood Watch. So this guy, you guys legitimize him. Neighborhood council doesn't want to work with him. City council doesn't want to work with him either. Last time this event happened, Katie Yaroslavsky's office was involved in planning this event. I have talked to people in Katie Yaroslavsky's office. They want nothing to do with this event this time around. So it's you guys, it's Pacific Division, that legitimizes this neighborhood bully, this guy who thinks he's dictator of the neighborhood and tries to harass and intimidate people when he doesn't get his way. So I suggest after this meeting is over, someone calls up Pacific Division and tells them to cancel the carnival. The community's not going to put up with it, but if they're stupid enough to still go through with this carnival, I can tell you right now the community will be there. We're not going to be there to participate. We're going to be there to protest. Let's see who has a bigger crowd, the protesters or the people who are participating in the carnival.
Thank you. The next speaker, Q.
So you're having another report this week on immigration enforcement. Once again, filled with lies, as folks have mentioned. But notably also, this report details how you're going to be using Motorola's Premier One computer-aided dispatch, or CAD, which is going to be installed to allow for disposition codes to further codify LAPD's aid and information sharing to federal immigration agencies. Why would you need an immigration disposition code if you're not aiding in immigration enforcement? Furthermore, the report brags about the zero LAPD aid to ICE. We already know this is a lie. At minimum, every flock camera that stalks the city is one note of LAPD aid to federal immigration enforcement. Flock ALPR camera data is exchanged between LAPD, fusion centers, and federal agencies, including ICE and DHS. Beyond this, we submitted a request for any and all MOUs, MOAs, and contracts with Flock, and LAPD released a single memorandum of understanding that has since expired that started right after the fires of 2025. We know of at least 2 additional MOUs, so your records release is far from complete. We also submitted 3 PRAs that have in fact been ignored without a single response that has long exceeded the initial 14 days and subsequent 14-day extension. In fact, some of our PRAs that we've submitted are years overdue. All this to say you have at least a 2023 and 2026 MOU that grants you access to Flock data, and it expires this July. You neglected to inform us of this agreement at all in our PRA request, and then close the request. What are you trying to hide in refusing to release these records to us? This agreement allowed LAPD to track and store the movement of Angelenos for the past 3 years without paying a single dollar, free of no charge. There's no such thing as free surveillance. Our communities pay with our safety and our lives. Furthermore, last week, we watched reformist coalitions sanitize LAPD's violence in real time, notably the LA Sanctuary Coalition that's supposedly going to be giving a presentation to you. They repeated verbatim some of our critiques and talking points of Flock, while simultaneously and subsequently insisting LAPD is, quote, necessary for public safety. You can't expose surveillance harm while defending the primary institution that deploys it. Calling for LAPD to work with ICE less won't protect our communities. It's rebranding the same system and sanitizing the same violence. LAPD are not opposites. LAPD is simply the blueprint. Local policing has always functioned as the entry point into detention, deportation, and disappearance. Reform continues to be the shock absorber of policing. It absorbs public outrage, softens the language, and then redirects resources right back into the same systems of control. We refuse reforms that legitimize surveillance. We refuse, quote unquote, safer policing. The demand is not to regulate the stalker state, it's to dismantle it. No to Flock, no to ALPRs, no to the surveillance state, and no to LAPD aiding ICE entirely.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Justin Alexander.
Okay, I'll get straight to it. The first order of business, I have this discharge for this officer. Claims that he was discharged for not meeting the Los Angeles probationary standards as a police officer. I was able to pull every last one of his DORs, and here we see that there are no unsatisfactory remarks. Furthermore, I was able to pull up the commanding officer's education, which went ahead and informed me that the officer was terminated by the department due to an incident that initiated the complaint investigation. I was able to pull up the post of disclosure, and we found that the actual allegation was physical abuse, excessive force, or unreasonable force. And after review of the allegations of serious misconduct, it didn't arise to the allegation that is presented right up there. And additionally, there are no other disqualifiers from holding police officer standards. I was able to actually pull up the sergeant's investigative notes, and it goes in to say that there were several discrepancies in the initial police reports. One being that the officers who wrote this report said that this officer got into a physical altercation with a male Hispanic. That wasn't consistent with the recovered surveillance video. It also goes in to say that Alexander had never exited a Dodge Charger while being shot at. It also goes in to say that the IR face sheet was incorrect and that the primary witness should have been Alexander, the officer that was terminated. It goes on to say also, too, that according to the surveillance video, the questions by the detective who interrogated the officer were not consistent with the video that was captured. The actual report itself was erroneous. Moving forward, I was able to find the follow-up report, which then changed the officers from a victim to a witness. So ultimately, this officer lost his job because of hearsay, because of false allegations. Now the Civil Service Commission is waiting for an appointment from the chief of police or whoever's in charge to make a decision if they're going to allow this officer to come back or to take a different path. That's really all I have to say, but that's the Los Angeles Police Department in a nutshell. So thank you all for that time, and God be with you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Michael Williams.
The fact that none of you have talked about Elias Riel is sick. It's sick. The disease that usually sits here lied to y'all last week. Told you that he turned around and towards the officers when literally there's a video that shows him walking away from them. And then they shot. They didn't even give him time to respond to officers' commands before they got out of their car and killed him. And the fact that none of you asked questions about it, the fact that probably none of you have even seen the video is sick. What's the point of this? What is the point of this commission? Y'all were created. This commission was created to deal with situations like this. Not to do PR for the LAPD, not to talk about how we're going to create opportunities for healing after you abused us. The point of this commission was to hold the police accountable when they harm the community. And y'all don't even ask questions about a man murdered. You don't ask questions about an LAPD chief lying. The same way he lied about Keith Porter. Saying that he was an active shooter. Saying that Brian Palacios was a hero. The police lie, and y'all let them. With no questions, no pushback. What is wrong with you? Literally, what is wrong with you? I shouldn't expect anything from y'all. I really shouldn't. I've been coming to the police commission for 10 years. I've known your predecessors' predecessors. I know exactly what type of people they put on this commission and why you all are here. They know you're spineless. They know you're cowards. They know you won't do anything. That's why they put you here. Because if they thought you had the ability to actually change something or the courage to do it, you wouldn't be on this commission. This police chief, the disease that usually sits here, needs to be fired. And doesn't that make you mad that they think you won't do it? They think you're such cowards, you're so spineless, you're such upward mobility people. You only care about your own success over the success of the community, over the safety of the community, that they know you won't do it. Even though the disease that usually sits here, who can't be bothered to be here today, has lied to y'all, has continued to work with ICE that is doing terroristic acts in our community, and has lied about a man being murdered.
Thank you. The next speaker, Nick Stern.
LAPD kicked him in the chest on Saturday. Keep that in mind. They already busted his chin open before. He got shot in the leg by another department.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nick Stern. I've been a photojournalist for more than 30 years. I've been on assignments to around 50 countries. I've covered protest, civil unrest, and conflict for international media organizations. I take it you can all read what's written on the front of my shirt. The same things written on the back. Written on each of my arms. It's also written on my credentials in an oversized patch hanging from my neck. This is exactly what I was wearing on Saturday whilst covering the protest at the Immigration Detention Centre for a UK media organisation. This is exactly what I was wearing when I was threatened with arrest, where I was obstructed, when I was assaulted, and when I was kicked in the chest by an LAPD officer. All of which violates Penal Code 409.7, A, 1 and 2, my constitutional rights and a court injunction. My question to you is, What do I have to do to identify myself so I don't get brutalized by LAPD? What do I have to do? Just tell me. Thank you.
And Chief, can we make sure that complaint is lodged? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Adam Rose.
Good morning. I'm Adam Rose from the Los Angeles Press Club and Freedom of the Press Foundation. Last week, Chief McDonald told this commission that working media never have a problem with full access everywhere they deserve. His words, and I quote, "Our relationship with the working media, the traditional media, if you will, I don't think is as good anywhere in the country." Now, I often speak up for independent and freelance journalists. Nick Stern, Sean Beckner-Carmichael, several of them in this room today. They've suffered broken bones, concussions, even lost eyeballs, and all have the exact same legal rights as so-called traditional media. Whatever the chief means by these terms, the Constitution and state law do not make any distinction. And even the chief cannot deny the following victims were working. Lee Sinko came back from a war zone to cover protests here, and he was shot by LAPD with a 37mm working for the LA Times. Ringo Chu was taking a photograph when LAPD assaulted him on multiple occasions, leading to claims against the department. He works for the Associated Press. Barbara Davidson was holding up her ID when thrown backward, hitting her head in the back of her head in a fire hydrant. You should know her work from the LA Times. You should know all three are Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalists, all assaulted since 2020. But let's jump now to incidents from just the last few months under McDonald's tenure. In January, LAPD shot a photographer directly in his credentials that were on his chest, issued by LAPD itself. He was working for AFP, a top European agency. Ryan Mina has been hit, shoved, and bruised by LAPD on multiple occasions working for the LA Daily News. Last summer, Salvador Duran was shoved by LAPD working for Univision. Livia Albrecht-Ripka was shot and had to go to the hospital working for the New York Times. Jason Carroll and his crew were detained live on air working for CNN. Aaron Burnett described officers as happy to push her live on air, also working for CNN. Jonathan Hunt and his crew were shot at in their vehicle working for Fox News. A reporter and their crew were ordered to go home working for KCAL. Matt Gutman was pushed into a car hood and harassed by LAPD live on television, working as the chief national correspondent for ABC, a job he now holds for CBS. Ron Haviv, one of the greatest photojournalists of his generation and covering wars. He avoided being shot in dozens of conflicts, and he couldn't avoid being shot by LAPD with a 40mm working for Seven Agency, which he helped to found. Reed Butler, Lauren Tomasi, both shot with LLMs, both working for 9 News Australia. And by the way, McDonald claims body cam adds context to Tomasi's incident, but I've seen it. It does not help the department's case. Connor Sheets, Jason Armand, Rebecca Ellis, Kevin Rector, James Quealy, all denied access, all working for the LA Times. Sheets was manhandled by the collar just 2 weeks ago. Speaking of Quealy, historical note, LAPD put him in zip ties in 2021. Kate Cagle, working for Spectrum News 1, also put in zip ties. Let's not forget the millions of dollars shelled out in the last few decades from taxpayers' pockets because LAPD assaulted journalists from KTTV, Fox, KPCC, the NPR affiliate, KCBS, KTLA, Telemundo, and more. The evidence is overwhelming. A federal judge called it a mountain. McDonald needs to stop denying it, stop blaming journalists. LAPD is the problem. McDonald must admit it and fix it. If LAPD
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Again, Chief, I want to make sure all of these complaints are being taken to the extent that they need to talk with someone. And Mr. Rose, thank you for that.
The next speaker, Gina V.
In the words of Keith Porter Jr.'s family, y'all some fucking demons. I'm gonna say it every time. Having to comment before the agenda items is bullshit and demonstrates what a farce this is. There are more than $60,000 in donations on this agenda alone, speaking to why you're all sitting here. You're making nice with all of these nonprofits to enrich your own lives once you're off this farce of a clown show. That's what the people, the predecessors that Michael spoke to, are doing. One's running for office. All their nonprofits have gotten enriched since sitting on this desk. It's just disgusting. Crime declines, giving you plenty of time to show up at things like coffee with the cops in a tiny Hollywood neighborhood. There were 9 cops there for hours on a Saturday. I think there were only about 12 people in attendance, but you had 9 police officers sitting in a park having coffee. I don't want to pay for that anymore. Nobody wants to pay for that anymore. There are plenty of cop shows being filmed in Los Angeles. Go work for them. You guys are really good at reading off of scripts. The fucking chief's report is written in advance. Your questions are written in advance. You spend the whole week preparing for this moment to read from your scripts. There's lots of Hollywood productions. Go do that. Go do that. I'm tired. We're all tired, right? We're all tired of coming here. Like Michael, I've been coming here 10 years. 10 years to watch you all change faces and do the exact same thing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Rasha, you ask, oh, what about the underreported crime? People don't report crime. There are fucking people in this room reporting crime that you do nothing about. The Scientology folks come here week after week reporting crimes. Crimes in Hollywood that are happening to children. We have our own Epstein bullshit, and it's called Scientology, and you fucking sit here and do nothing about it. People are telling you each and every week, who's gonna come report crime here? Do you see what it looks like outside? You have us chained in. We have to go all the way to the end to get in. Like, you don't solve crime, you don't prevent crime. All you do is put on a show each and every week. You know Brian Palacios murdered Keith Porter Jr. You know this. You know his name, you know where he lives, and you do nothing about it. And he's just one of many. One of many. What are we doing here? You all need to resign. Resign and let other people sit up here who actually will hold the LAPD accountable. The LAPD removes journalists and legal observers so you can use your 65 deep bench PR to That's fucking bullshit.
The next speaker, please, Megan.
Hello again to the vanguard of white supremacy in Los Angeles. For the record, you are racist and you are murderers. I haven't been able to give public comment in a while because you continue to decrease access to this meeting, coincidentally, as the public shows an increased interest in being here. Rasha, I was listening into the meeting while I walked up. You sound tired. I imagine the cognitive dissonance of thinking yourself a good person while also participating in this is quite tiring. I hope you get no sleep at all. Jeffy loves a report. Have you ever gotten any of these reports back that you request every week? Will you ever do anything besides ask for reports and ask questions to which you don't even demand answers? Choi says they take complaints, bias policing complaints, seriously. And yet this department has never, or possibly just once, ever sustained a racial bias complaint, at least in over 10 years. A stunning achievement by a department who just last year was revealed to have open racist conversation at work in this building, totally normal and routine. A department whose statistics on who you pull over and who you arrest and who you kill reveal nothing but racial bias. Policing was created to surveil and hunt down enslaved Africans and return them to slavery. Professional, salaried slave patrols. Policing was created to ensure that wealthy, powerful white people could extract labor and keep black people poor and segregated. You protect and serve a very small fraction of this population, and you always have. It is not a flaw in the system that police collaborate with ICE. They serve the same masters. Jim McDonnell, the uncooked potato who normally sits over yonder, like most conservative men, is deeply submissive to white male authority. He can't even dream of not helping ICE, so much so that when a law was passed requiring him to challenge the authority of ICE by requiring them to be unmasked, he came right out and said that he wouldn't enforce it. And he continues to show up at the detention center to protect his beloved federal agents from the people who are actually fighting back, who are actually trying to provide accountability for this bullshit. It does not exist. You idiots sit up there week after week defending this. Policing was never about public safety. Policing is not broken. Policing is functioning exactly the way that it's supposed to. And for all the non-black people who are now standing in the crosshairs of that violence, please remember that black people stood there for over 400 years and still stay there. Remember that when you think that this is new. It's not new. It's not new just because it's happening to you now. Fuck you.
The next speaker, Andrew G.
Okay. So, where's Fabian? He left right when public comment started. He's been gone ever since. So if he comes back, he shouldn't be eligible to vote on anything because he missed most of public comment. So the chief's report should be delivered in writing. The chief and his assistant chiefs or whatever have shown no willingness to keep the report to a reasonable amount of time. So this is a better solution to ensure that everyone can speak both in person and on the phone. The other solutions include maybe opening up the first 2 rows to members of the public. You're going out of your way just to make it as difficult as possible to enter this building. Forcing us to go outside, stand around while they set up all these ropes, just doing whatever. It's just a different process every single week. And it's all to make it as difficult as possible to come address you. You shouldn't even be meeting here. You should be meeting in the community. Although, of course, the couple times you actually did meet in the community, you basically filled it with cops and turned it into a disaster. But anyway, let's see. But again, you keep asking all the questions about LAPD's and the protests and such. They show week after week after week after week after week. They're assisting ICE. They're attacking the press. And when are any of you going to say something or actually do something about it? You have the power to fire Jim McDonald. You can do it yourself. You don't even have to get the mayor or city council. Yes, the city council could veto you, but you could at least be on the correct side yourself. At least fire him. But you won't do that. You're all here just to serve the mayor, and the mayor is bought and paid for by the LAPPL. The mayor that's more concerned about her big events and her donors and from the donations from the LAPPL and such, that's why Jim McDonald's here. He's here to increase the violence. He's here to not piss off the federal government, basically, and, so that they come and give Bass all our resources for the Olympics, the ones that are now discriminating against trans and intersex athletes, things like that. And, but you won't say or do anything. You've got all this just random corruption on the agenda. You've got all this expensive lunches. You've got, you've got $19,000 for 2 days of lunches and events. Well, that's still way too much. Fire Jim McDonald.
The next speaker, Susan Tolan. Susan Tolan. Okay, she's not here. Okay, Madam Chair, we are at the end of public comment.
We will continue public comment a little longer, so can we hear from the next speaker, please?
Okay. The next speaker, Baba Akili.
Say his name. Elijah Riel. Say his name. Say his name. We have to do that because you won't. We have to do that because you won't. Here's the process and the pattern that many of us have observed here. That you engage in investigation. The investigation means no comment. That you don't say anything. The investigation drags on. Then you go into executive committee, make a decision, and then someday we find out about it. That's the process and the pattern that we have witnessed. That's what we hear when we ask about what is the status of the investigation in regard to Keith Porter. What's the what's the status? What's the status of the murder of Elias Riel? You hide behind process when people are demanding transparency and accountability. You hide behind process when the people who you supposedly are representing are demanding transparency and accountability. Michael talked about your uselessness. And we come here, he's been coming here for 10 years, I've been coming here for 14, and I've been arrested here twice. I have been banned from here for a year. And all of us continue to come because we believe that our presence, our input, and our concerns need to be heard, even though we know that you have and it didn't matter who was chair, it didn't matter who was on the members, our concerns have gone into an abyss. And if you all make a comment at all, it opens with a compliment. And then you may ask a question. That is borderline useless. And so part of why we come here every week is to remind you that one, we exist, two, that there are issues and concerns, and three, what is the status of the murder of Keith Porter? And we're gonna keep asking that question. I don't care how many times you tell us it's under investigation, there's no comment, we're gonna keep raising it because we know if we don't raise it, you will cover it up. Thank you.
Next speaker, Jason Reedy.
Michael, you've already had an opportunity to speak. This is your first warning.
I don't give a damn what
Okay. So you are now out of order, so you can either stay quiet or we'll ask you to leave. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to be removed from the meeting. Sir, can you please leave the meeting? Thank you.
This man got shot in the back and y'all got nothing to say about it. Not even a question? Not even a question? Not even a acknowledgement?
Sir, you've been asked to leave.
These fools do whatever they want. I'm sick and tired of coming here.
Sir.
I'm sick and tired of coming here seeing people get murdered. I'm tired of watching videos of LAPD murdering people.
Sir,
I'm tired of it.
You have disrupted the meeting.
Well, thank you, Michael, for disrupting me. Y'all ain't doing nothing anyway.
Mr. Reedy?
All right, so as Michael was saying, pigs Antonio Cortina and Kevin Santizo murdered Elias Rial the morning of April 3rd. They shot him in the back as he walked away, and Jim McDonald sat here last week lying about the whole deadly encounter, claiming that Elias had turned towards your pigs. A brave neighbor shared video clearly showing your pigs unloading their clips into Elias as he walked away, and this commission has said nothing about it. Shouldn't you say something? As Michael was saying, LAPD pigs stole the life of Elias Rial, and McDonald couldn't even get his name right in the report last week. Now, I missed last week's meeting as I was outside for a press conference to announce a lawsuit filed by me, Richie Sergenko, and Shakir Rahman against the LAPD on the night of June 9th. LAPD pig Rick Linton shot all three of us after we dared to say something about him pointing his 40 millimeter at the heads of marchers on the sidewalk. When LAPD was getting lambasted for their terror last June, McDonald spoke about the restraint of his department and how, quote, accountability is not a threat to policing, it is a pillar of it. Here's a perfect example of people holding your pig to account and getting terrorized for it. Nothing new here. Hiding the identities of your pigs is commonplace. McDonald is hiding the identity of the pig who this department determined was part of a law enforcement gang. He's hiding the identity of Lawrence Gonzalez's murder nearly 4 months after stealing his life. LAPD sued the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and journalist Ben Camacho for publishing public records via the Watch the Watchers website in an attempt to continue to hide the identities of your swine. And Antonio Cortino, the pig who murdered Elias Rial, his photo is locked up in a public records request because your pigs won't release those photos. They haven't released photos of your pigs since 2022. Okay? As many have heard, killer pig William Dorsey Jones Jr. is on stand in the civil trial against the city of Los Angeles for the killing of Valentina Oriana Peralta. I'll remind this commission that applauds the LAPD for its transparency that I was the one to ID him, not y'all. Dorsey, a bona fide Trumper, even came to coach a football game in Sherman Oaks while he was on a year-long paid vacation from the LAPD, and it wasn't the commissioners or any pork chops who were there to hold him accountable for his actions. It was me and Will and others who were there to expose him. Not only is he racking up overtime while on the stand, but the LAPD still chooses to employ Jones as he racks up $200K a year. In recent years, LAPD refused to tell the public where he was stationed in response to a public records request. Jim McDonald went on KTLA recently and was asked directly about whether he would want to fire pigs, or if he would want to have the power to fire pigs who had a documented, repeated history of harm and misconduct. Instead of answering that question, he ducked it because it's clear that he wouldn't want the ability because he'd be given more critique for keeping around the pigs who murder and terrorize our communities. He supports those pigs. They're his favorite type of pork. The murder of Linda Becerra-Moran, in his eyes, all good. The shooters of Jillian Lauren, all good in his book. Now I want to talk about Teresa, even though she's not here. Last week we saw numerous violations of the stupid fucking rules of this commission, signs in the air, people going over public comment, and you were silent. But a couple people seated in the back of the room playing with my child is where you draw the line. A video racked up some views of what happened last time I was here, and you had pig Josh Fillinger on the clock, commenting that I was paid to do this and that it's all an act. More lies from this department. I've seen more disgust, acrimony, and rage directed at my children than the pigs you were supposedly tasked with overseeing. Fuck.
The next speaker, O. Stone.
OSB's outreach and community policing projects are LAPD's failed attempts to win community trust. Their presentations at churches and LAPD sports teams are designed to sanitize their violence, deputize community members, and recruit youth. LAPD, in their own words, says community policing is to give the appearance of being methodological and unbiased. Mass deportations flock ALPR data has been used to facilitate mass deportations and abductions. Flock data is constantly shared with ICE, CBP, and DHS. That's a fact. To streamline and draw a map from them to abduct our community members. Flock released a smoke and mirror apology letter claiming that they will stop sharing information with federal agencies, but the information sharing is backed in via fusion centers in the information sharing environment. The targeting of sex workers. LAPD training materials explicitly recommend placing ALPRs near areas where sex workers work to track vehicles and identify clients, turning entire neighborhoods into digital stakeouts. Hunting abortion seekers. ALPR data has been used to track folks who need or have had abortions, sometimes under false pretenses of missing persons. The state of California claims it is pro-abortion, pro-gender affirming care, pro-immigrant. The reality is that the information sharing environment exists and delivers us on a platter to the right. There is no such thing as a pro-abortion state wherein people's information is being shared with the federal government and states where abortion is banned. Trafficking and criminalizing youth, students, and their loved ones. School-linked flock cameras have been used to track students and their loved ones with the purpose of immigration enforcement and abduction. These kids end up in juvenile halls like Los Padrinos, which you guys have never updated. And you guys spent all this money trying to update these juvenile halls, which still exist in total dilapidation today. Flock enables stalking by police. Officers across the country have already been caught using ALPR systems to track women they were in relationships with. These databases create a searchable map of people's movements. LAPD's audit, instead of following the dozens of other cities across the nation and ending the harm caused by Flock by canceling their contracts, LAPD has doubled down and announced they will be conducting an internal audit of their partnership and data sharing with Flock Safety. You cannot audit a system that's designed to abduct and murder. LAPD's audit is a classic smoke and mirrors tactic designed to delay us. But while the LAPD does an audit of themselves, they will continue to share Flock data with federal agencies. We know this already. LAPD's self-audit will be filled with lies, but either way, we already know that Flock data is being exchanged between LAPD and federal immigration agencies. We do not need an audit to tell us what we already know. Flock ALPR data is used to criminalize us, to abduct us, and to deliver us on a platter to ICE. We don't need an audit. We need LAPD to shut down their partnership with Flock Safety. Joey Buckets, former LAPD officer and city council member. Who's Joey Busciano? I don't know him.
The next speaker, Aiden.
It's becoming an increasingly common displeasure that you guys actually let me talk in this meeting instead of throwing me out. I'm going to have to start preparing comments like everyone else. I don't really have anything more articulate to say about what pieces of shit you all are. You know, for people in this room who don't know, this commission is appointed by the mayor. So all the people who are like, oh, you know, you don't have to agree with Karen Bass, you know, you just have to get Chief McDonald out. Well, like, who the fuck do you think put him here? And as I think Michael said, they were put here for the exact reason that they will not ever do anything. You know, all of the things that Gina said were true. You know, these conversations they have at the beginning of the meeting are scripted. They're just little puppets, you know, with someone's hand up their ass saying whatever they're told. You know, you wonder why Rasha doesn't pay attention during the fucking report. It's because she already knows what her questions are because they were written for her before the meeting. You wonder why Jeff always says, oh, you know, yeah, you know, I'll look forward to reading that report. Well, Jeff, you let me know when you learn how to fucking read. Or maybe just try going on Instagram and looking at the many, many videos of your pigs brutalizing people. It's not really complicated. Daniel, I don't really have anything to fucking say to you aside from look around. You are lost. And Django, thank you for coming here to continue the white imperial mission of people beating the shit out of people for no reason. Dominic, you're not even a part of this fucking body. I don't know why you're here. I guess it's because your boss is an alcoholic. And Matthew, I want everyone to like really draw a clear distinction here that the office of the Inspector General exists inside of LAPD. It is not like some oversight body that actually does anything, has teeth, or gives a shit about people. It is it's led by this fucking guy who sits here every week and says he'll look into it. Well, has anyone who's been coming here, I guess the people who are coming here got kicked out of the meeting, but I'm pretty sure no one who's been coming here thinks that you're doing anything, and I would say the record reflects that. The last couple things, you know, I would say the purpose of a system is what it does. And what we see the LAPD do week after week is brutalize people, kill people, not actually go after any kind of crime that people might care about. And the reason why it does that is because that's what it was designed to do. As people say, you know, the LAPD and all policing is the inheritors of the heavy cross of being slave catchers and general racist pieces of shit. And I'd say you guys are continuing that strong legacy in all of your actions today and every day. I'll also say that the person who killed Keith Porter Jr., Brian Palacios, was an off-duty ICE agent. These are your best friends, apparently. Just call them in, say, hey, you can't just murder people, please. Maybe put them in jail while we still have those. Fuck you all.
Next speaker, please. Sir, your time is up. Your time is up. This is your warning. You are now disrupting the meeting.
The next speaker, Gato.
Hello, everybody. This is the weapon that the protesters were using in the last protest in there, last Saturday. Are you afraid of a dick? That was a big problem. Bringing all these police, I saw a lot of people going to the tunnel, going under the metro because they were shooting. They're afraid of people losing their eyes. They're afraid of losing their fucking lives in there when they're protesting, like the kid that you broke his leg when you were ganging on him. How many more lies are you gonna tell people like you taking care of things? You never do. You just do file, and don't do shit. It's a lot of people. There is a guy that was with a knife, starts screaming, white power, all this type of bullshit, the N-word, you beaners, this and that, since he passed by under the wonderful watch of you. That's a hate fucking crime. And then when people told him to leave, he put out a knife. And then they run like little bitches like all of you are. And they say, anybody can have a knife. You can buy it in Target and Walmart. I posted the fucking faces. I have the number, the card, and everything. There was a call that was made to 911. And they're like, just go. Yeah, but if I grab something, somebody says that I have something in my pocket, you put me on handcuffs, you put me to a patrol car, you attack me. If it's a black person, the same shit. White privilege, this bullshit. All you do. You're just a bunch of gang criminals in here. As I said every time, gang stalkers. That's why you let them go. White privilege, really? If you see a dick, you're gonna call a bunch of people in here. What's a guy with a knife in there attacking people? So I'm gonna leave this in here because you might need it. Suck it every day or stick it wherever the fuck you like it. Fuck it.
The next speaker, please, William Good.
Good morning. So you mentioned something about crime trends. Jeff asked, how's that compared to other cities? I'm going to tell you, it's consistent with national trends and state trends. In fact, LA is lagging behind San Francisco and Oakland, lagging behind DC, Detroit. So this is what we're seeing. It's just, you guys aren't doing anything special. In fact, you're doing it with fewer cops. Crime is dropping with fewer cops. Rasha, you asked, are people reporting crimes, right? Like, people are being murdered and bodies are just laying around on the street and nobody's reporting it. Nobody's reporting being shot. Come on, can we stop this? It's like you guys want to make excuses for the fact that crime is dropping with fewer cops. This guy says, hey, you know what? You know, we really encourage people to report crime. Let me tell you what happens if you report crime. In 2019, a woman reported being terrorized by future cop Gabriel Spadas. This is in 2019. And she never heard back from them until Friday. 7 years later, all of a sudden, because it's in the news, now we want to talk to you, ma'am. Now, in 2020, when he was hired by the LAPD, he failed his polygraph test. And what question did he fail on, from what I understand? It was the question relating to, have you ever had sex with a minor? He failed that, and then the LAPD hired him. And then 2 years later, he has a woman that's on a 5150 hold. Once he gets out of the hold, he's reaching out to her, letting her know, I kept you out of jail. And then he's having anal sex with her and fisting her and trying to make her have sex with dogs. With dogs. Now, all this information was available because it's backed up in the text messages. Come to find out, Chief McDonald went and looked at a complaint related to her lawsuit that we are now settling right now for many millions of dollars. And he ruled it demonstrably false. He didn't even interview the victims. He just ruled it demonstrably false to cover it up. Now, over the last couple of weeks, you guys are liars, right? There's been a leak of LAPD documents. You and the LAPPL, who's faking it, have known about those leaks, have known about the scope of those leaks. They lied and said, oh no, you know, these are all old adjudicated cases. No, it's not. Gabriel Spadas' case is right in there. I have everything. I have the interview records, body-worn video, all types of shit. And what we saw is you guys covered up a rape. You, Internal Affairs, called him a predator. Said what he did was akin to a crime, but yet you did not investigate it. In fact, the only person investigated was the victim in the case, who had a detective come to her house to try to investigate her for a crime. You guys are going to hell and you fucking deserve it.
Thank you. The next speaker, Olivia Irene Fitzsimmons.
Hello, good morning. My name is Olivia Irene Fitzsimmons. I'm here today because I would like to make an announcement that the Federal Bureau of Investigations has a community and business leader class for April, I believe, till June, and then again in September through October from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. once a week, and it goes to different speaking terms, religious and community things the FBI is doing and what to learn. And I would like to tell LAPD as well as the community of Los Angeles City and the suburbs that the meeting is in Riverside, I believe Woodstock or Wood something, and Orange County. So the application is online and you can look it up, but I will post it on my Facebook page, which is Olivia Fitzsimmons. Thank you. Have a good day.
The next speaker, Michael Ackerman.
Good morning. So today I'm going to tell you one way you can commit murder and get away with it. There are a lot of ways, but I'm telling you just one. First, you need to bribe or threaten medical examiners so they report suspicious deaths as natural. Unless there's obvious trauma, hardly anybody will know the difference. The other thing you need is public officials who will reliably say, pish posh, the very idea is preposterous. Sadly, my personal experience with police shows that they persistently ignore allegations and fail to record allegations, even though these are blatant violations of policy. If there were really a problem with people making false reports, the police should have brought this to the attention of city councils so they could properly deal with it. So does the fact that police have appointed themselves judge and jury mean that murders are being covered up? You could say they made it inevitable, or you could say pish posh. The very idea is preposterous.
Thank you. The next speaker, Fia.
My name is Fia. I'm an NPPA member and I attend protests as a freelance photojournalist. I'm 22 and I recently started attending these. I've not been attending quite as long as some of the other people here, but I hope by the time that I'm 32, you are all either rotting in your graves or fired. That goes for you as well, who I haven't had the pleasure of speaking to before, the displeasure, Dominic. You're the person that usually sits in your spot, Jim McDonnell, consistently lies to this group of cowards that have absolutely no backbone. It's your fucking job. What the fuck are you doing here? Just wasting time on a Tuesday morning? Become employed and do something valuable rather than just sitting here and listening to lies. We are here bringing you evidence of press being abused, of officers covering up murders, and you just sit here and say, oh, we haven't heard anything of the such. It's been 3 weeks now since No Kings. The meeting after was canceled. The one after that, we brought you evidence. We told you. Children who were there in the capacity of documenting with photos, with cameras that their parents had gotten them for Christmas. 18-year-olds who were freshmen at USC got shot in the eye, lost their eye, while documenting events. And you can't speak to anything about federal agents, ICE, interactions with protesters that might have been illegal. On top of that, we have people this last weekend that were kicked in the chest. I myself was hit with a baton while I was already moving backwards on a line of press trying to cover an arrest that was ongoing. I had duly identified myself, and this happened after I spent 2 hours going up and down a police line after I had left the dispersal order area asking for a supervising officer, a media liaison, or badge numbers. I was ignored on all 3 requests. While I documented arrests, I was targeted because I was calling out officers asking for their badge numbers over and over and over again, completely being ignored. There was no media liaison on site. Every time I asked for a supervising officer, they said, I don't know where one is, and then they continued to abuse people without giving their badge numbers, without giving their names, without finding anyone that you guys say, oh, well, we have protocols in place to make sure that things like this don't happen. Your protocols in place are that you get to show up here and fucking lie, you pieces of shit. You are horrible. You specifically, the 2 of you, you tried to pander and say, oh, well, I'm asking questions. Fuck you. Fuck the 2 of you, specifically. Okay? Ask a goddamn question and ask for an answer. Don't just say, oh, great, I'll wait for that report. We're waiting too. We're waiting for you to grow a fucking pair. Fucking do something with the immense privilege that you've been given. You have so much fucking power. Do you know how many people sit here, drive hours to get here, to listen to you do bullshit? Nothing. How fucking dare you?
The next speaker, John Reginald Brexton. John Reginald Brexton. Not present. Okay, we have no other cards, Madam Chair.
Okay, that concludes public comment. We'll take a 10-minute recess and get back to the agenda. Okay, well, let's move on to item number 3 on the agenda. Do any commissioners have any questions about items 3A and through 3G? No. Okay. Excuse me, just a second. Okay, thank you. With no questions, I move that we approve items 3A through 3G and take the recommended board action. Is there a second? Okay, ma'am, you are disrupting the meeting. This is your first and final warning. So I move that we approve items 3A through 3G on the agenda and take the recommended board action. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's move on to item 4 on the agenda, the regular agenda items. And I will actually take item 4A and 4B together, hearing first the department's report and then the verbal presentation of the Office of Inspector General. And if you can start with introducing yourselves and then get into the report. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning to the Honorable Police Commission, Inspector General, Assistant Chief of Police, the Legal Advisor, Carlos De La Guerra. Good morning. It is on. Can you hear me better? Yeah, thank you. My name is Deputy Chief Hurtado. I'm the Department's Immigration Affairs Liaison, and I'm here to give the publicly the Department's report on federal immigration enforcement actions. The Honorable Karen Bass, Mayor of the City of Los Angeles, initiated Executive Order Number 12 and Executive Order Number 17, and provided direction for all city departments regarding federal immigration enforcement activity. The Department's Immigration Affairs Liaison is responsible for providing a public report to the Board of Police Commission, no less than monthly, and more frequently based on the level of immigration activity. The report shall contain, extended by law, aggregated data regarding incidents which the department's officers have documented and received reports of suspected unlawful conduct by immigration enforcement agents. And for the month of March 2026, there was no responses to federal civil immigration enforcement actions. There was 0 calls from the public. There were 0 calls from federal agents, and there was 0 crimes reported for the month of March.
If you're going to remain in the meeting, I just ask that you not comment verbally. Thank you. Please continue.
Yes. I wanted to move forward with some of the training and the advances that Los Angeles Police Department has done. The department has updated its protocols and documented calls for service related to federal immigration enforcement actions. And this update now allows officers to properly document the disposition codes on their mobile data computers in the patrol cars. Currently, the officers utilizing a disposition code that we use others, but now that's going to be a permanent into the mobile data system that says every federal immigration enforcement action that they respond to, and it's going to be, and this is to help properly record all the involvements that LAPD does with any federal immigration actions. So that's right now. It's been approved, and we're just waiting for the I think it's Premier 1 to actually put it into the system. I also wanted to give some training updates and in responses to involving federal immigration enforcement actions. Since March 3rd is being distributed the memo from, or the Office of Chief of Police memo regarding responding to federal immigration actions from March 3rd. It's right now being distributed in all roll calls throughout the city. And it's being read for the next 5 days, and it's also going to be, it is now part of training, and all the officers in the department have to take this training that mandates exactly what Executive Order 17 delineates. And also through the DIAL program, I want to talk that we've accomplished approximately 300 roll calls throughout the city and 130 events, really focusing on what the department's stance is on immigration, on civil enforcement immigration, and how we do not respond to any civil immigration enforcement. And right now, we with the other training that we had in the past, we were at 95% training, but now this new update that we have with the revised notice from March 3rd is currently being taken right now. So right now I'm ready for any questions or recommendations or comments.
And thank you. And if the other commissioners are okay with it, it would be helpful to hear also the Inspector General's report, and then we can kind of collectively ask questions as needed.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a brief update to share related to this verbal presentation. Yesterday morning, I attended the Mayor's Executive Directive 12, ED12 Working Group convening, which included representatives from the Mayor's Office, immigrants' rights organizations, and community leaders. I outlined the Office of Inspector General's role, described our community outreach efforts, and reaffirmed our commitment to devote resources to this area, provide the Commission with updates and findings, and to continue participating in the working group's ongoing dialogue. As mentioned, Executive Directives 12 and 17 were issued by the Honorable Mayor Karen Bass to strengthen transparency, coordination, and public trust regarding the city's response to federal immigration enforcement activity. These directives reflect longstanding community concerns in Los Angeles about civil rights, public safety, and the need for clear oversight when local law enforcement encounters federal immigration operations. This work matters to Los Angeles residents because it promotes transparency, helps ensure the department's response is consistent with city policy, and supports public confidence that encounters are handled lawfully, safely, and respectfully. Since the executive directive was issued in February, the OIG has worked closely with the department to establish a reporting protocol for all calls for service related to federal immigration enforcement. The department's communications division now provides the OIG with a weekly report identifying relevant incidents. I will now turn it over to Lisa Ridout, Assistant Inspector General of the Audit Section, to provide the Office of the Inspector General's update and review.
Good morning, Commissioners. As the Inspector General mentioned, I'll be providing an update on our ongoing audit of the Department's response to calls for service involving federal immigration action. So to compile the weekly report to our office, Communications Division personnel searched the Department's call log database for specific keywords located in the comments entered by police service representatives and responding officers. These keywords include immigration, federal enforcement, kidnap, and mask. Staff then review every incident summary to determine whether it meets the criteria for reporting to the Commission under Executive Directive 17. The OIG has full access to these search results and independently reviews a sample of incidents. To date, we have not identified any incident that should have been reported but was not. To improve data capture, the Deputy Chief already mentioned the new disposition code. The department is developing that new disposition code that officers will select when closing an incident involving federal immigration enforcement. That notice has been drafted and shared with our office, but it's yet to be distributed, as the Chief had mentioned. Once implemented, this code will allow quick identification for relevant incidents, while Communications Division will continue keyword searches to ensure the OIG receives a complete and accurate list. So turning over now towards our ongoing audit, a police special investigator has been assigned to conduct a comprehensive review of each identified incident involving federal immigration enforcement action. That review includes viewing all body-worn video, in-car video, dispatch records, incident summaries, and any related reports. We maintain an electronic database with our evaluation of each incident, which includes, among other things, the nature of the call for service, whether a supervisor was dispatched and responded, timely activation and labeling of body-worn video and any other evidence, officer communication with community members, use of de-escalation techniques, steps taken by LAPD personnel to identify any federal agents on scene, documented and reported actions by federal agents, and whether medical aid was requested when necessary and whether reports were properly completed. On March 3rd, the department presented 8 incidents they identified as calls for service related to immigration enforcement during January and February. All 8 incidents occurred before Executive Directive 17 was issued. As such, we evaluated those for compliance with the department's existing guidelines for responding to calls involving federal immigration action. So overall, we determined that LAPD officers had no interaction with federal agents, as none were present when officers arrived on scene for those incidents. Department officers were generally courteous and effectively communicated to the public that LAPD is not involved with any immigration enforcement. All 8 calls for service were initiated by a community member, and for 1 call, federal agents also requested assistance to the same location, but later cancelled their request. A supervisor was appropriately dispatched to 4 of the 5 incidents for which a supervisor should have been dispatched, and assigned units responded appropriately based on the nature of the call. Responding officers activated their body-worn video and digital in-car video where required. However, not all video evidence was correctly tagged and titled for 4 of the 5 incidents that had recordings. So these issues that we identified have been shared with the department. As previously reported to the BOPC, there were no incidents in February, and no incidents have been identified in March for calls for service involving immigration enforcement action. In closing, I want to remind members of the public that they may report relevant incidents directly to our office by phone or email by providing the date, time, and location of the event. Our contact number is 213-893-6400, and our email address is communityrelationsoig@lacity.org. That concludes my presentation, and the Inspector General and I are also available for any questions the Commission may have.
Thank you. Thank you both for the report. I'll start with my fellow commissioners. And before I do that, I'll turn it over to them. But I was wondering, does the Inspector General's office envision a written report at some point in time? Because I think some of the things that you itemized would be helpful for us to have kind of in written format.
Yes, well, as these incidents continue to be reported to us, we'll continue to conduct these thorough reviews. But ultimately, towards the end of the year, we plan to issue a public report with our findings and any recommendations we may have.
And I will add to that as we participate in community outreach and through the mayor's working group, as well as communications that my office has had with the LA Sanctuary Coalition, and as what we observe in the future, these reports may change. We are open to feedback from the Commission, and we are looking to continue to respond to members of the public asking to engage on this issue further. So we will have a written report that will be presented to this body, but it is important that we provide our report at the same time as the department so that the information is not stale and that we're providing what we've reviewed as it is timely and relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll start over with Commissioner Tabor. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Deputy Chief Furtado, the focus of your report and the information you provide, I want to make sure that I'm clear on your understanding of, or actually I'm clear on my understanding of what reporting requires and what a report is. So in many instances, we hear that observers have what they've witnessed, and then they want to turn around and engage in conversation with an officer at the scene, an LAPD officer at the scene, reporting what they're observing. Is that considered a report, or are we requiring that individual to write it all down, document it, and submit it to some specific process? Describe, if you can, what reporting requires.
Absolutely, Commissioner. So if there is a radio call where the officers respond to a report, the officers are going to conduct a thorough investigation to ensure that what the person reporting is actually accurate. With that, there'll be follow-up information depending on what type of incident they're reporting. And depending on the information that they receive or that they don't, or the lack of information they have, then they will actually write out a crime report if necessary.
So the expectation is that whether it was initially observed by an officer or shared with a person present with an officer, that an initial investigation, to use your term, occurs to substantiate the concern, and then that becomes a document that then is further investigated and moved to the process.
Correct. We either substantiate the crime or the event, or not able to, then we'll take a crime report, and then there'll be follow-up with the detectives, and then that's when we'll determine if the report will be unfounded or actually continue an investigation. Our concern is that we take everything that we can substantiate or even not be able to substantiate and take it and go from there. So it just depends on each scenario or each incident.
Okay, all right, that helps. I wanted to have that clarified here for the purposes of the public information. So,
And I may add, we do have incidents where people are suffering from some mental illness and they report things that are outlandish, and they will still investigate that, but we won't necessarily take a crime report for that.
so in the instance, just to add another sort of layer to this, in the instance that we get video evidence of that is provided, that is described as providing evidence of an infraction or an action, illegal action by ICE or another agency. What's the process of accepting that? Do we accept that and note it and then begin to follow through the investigation? How do we handle that type of?
Well, we take all investigations serious, and depending on what it is, if they show us a video that actually is showing some sort of crime, regardless of who that person is, we will take appropriate action.
All right. So that, with some confidence, the public should know that anything that they can report, that they can substantiate, then is subject to investigation and will be taken seriously at that point.
Correct, but it's no different than any other time the officers will go out there and conduct investigations out in the street. There still has to be an investigation, and we have to ensure that all the elements of the crime are met prior to taking that report.
Thank you. And no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Scobin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Before I have some questions for you, but before I do, to the IG, on your electronic search for terms, I noticed that ICE was not one of those terms. And I recognize that ICE is included in other terms that may make a search result difficult, but it feels like it's a pretty important search. Can you speak to if that's searched, if not why, and ultimately how we may be able to include those types of searches?
Yes, well, one of my staff has actually worked out a way to conduct a search and extract all words that have the word ICE in it, and then kind of filter out the ones that don't include the words like agent or other kind of associating words that could potentially be ICE. We did that search on one occasion for the month of March, and we didn't find any cases that would meet the criteria of being reportable under ED 17. So it seems to us that the search terms that we do have now are covering all of the cases that we would find that would be reportable.
Okay, thank you. Chief, few areas I'd like to explore. First off, mechanically on the report, thank you for the report. The report lists references several documents and executive directives, and recognizing that the report is for the commission, it's also made available to the public. Similarly to how our agenda, reports in our agenda have hyperlinks directly to them for ease of research, I'd like to request, to the extent that future reports include references to department manual sections or executive directives, that they be hyperlinked directly on the report for ease of research and for the sake of transparency. So, there seems to be, I think, a little bit of a disconnect. When you read a report that says 0 responses, suspecting unlawful conduct by federal immigration enforcement agents, 0 calls from the public, 0 calls from federal agents, and you hear, the public, you hear members of the media, there seems to be a disconnect as to, what's included on this report and what people are feeling, seeing, or hearing firsthand. Can we speak to, are we truly uncovering every opportunity for the department where a member of the public has called for help or support or whatnot? I know the executive director specifically talks about unlawful, but, are we tracking any calls of service by the public or anybody as it relates to, ICE and federal immigration? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Just like we said earlier, there is a search criteria that we do with certain words, and it will bring up several radio calls or calls for service that the officers responded to. Now, the executive directive specifically says that we have to document and receive any reports of suspected unlawful conduct by immigration enforcement agents. There they're HSI, ICE, Border Patrol, they're all over Southern California working. But that's not, because they're working, that's not part of the criteria to meet ED 17. So yes, people do call and say, I see certain federal agents working, and we will respond to that and make sure that there's no unlawful conduct. If there's not, then that's not reportable.
It just seems that, well, I appreciate the executive directive. That could be maybe like the minimum that we include in this report moving forward. And, to the extent we have that data, I think it'd be helpful, frankly, for us as a body.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask Chief Choi?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something. If somebody, whether it's a federal agent or the public, calls the police and reports a immigration enforcement activity, if we respond, regardless of whether we find it to be criminal or not, it will be reported. Just want to clarify that. So we are reporting that. And I'm confident that the system that we have set up to search for those type of calls is comprehensive and complete. To your question, I don't think we're missing any of these calls. We just didn't have them in March, but I will tell you, I know of at least one that I'm aware of that we'll have for April. So I'm confident that we're capturing what's happening out there.
And for the sake of, the public, what can be shared, I just think, when you look at everything that's going on, you look at the experience that we're hearing about on a week in by week out basis, to have a report on a monthly basis to us that shows 0 contacts just doesn't feel appropriate. So, recognizing that, this report is in response to an executive directive, but the fact that we're all here and this is an issue that we want to get on top of, what other information should be included on this to really tell the whole picture of what's going on?
I just wanted to add, so these do involve calls for service to immigration enforcement activity, and they won't include calls for service for crowd control or protest related activities that don't involve any sort of immigration enforcement action. They're more just a situation where there's a protest that relates to immigration enforcement, but it's not where the activities occur. So the 7 cases or 8 cases that were reported for January, several of those didn't involve immigration enforcement activities. Some of those, and I would say that the department over-reported. There were some cases that did not involve any sort of immigration enforcement. However, the caller called about ICE agents being in the neighborhood, and it wasn't necessarily immigration enforcement, but the department still captured that and reported it. And that was for the month of January. There just weren't any calls in February or March at all that we could identify.
And is there a reason that level of detail isn't included on this report?
Because this report was specifically for ED 17, and it specifically says to report the aggregated data of suspected unlawful conduct by immigration enforcement agents.
Sure. Let's move to Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, if I can sort of just follow up on some of the same questions. It also, and I'll repeat the comment, right? It also sort of doesn't feel like it matches. Now, Chief, you said April is going to be different. And so looking forward to that and see how that is captured and reported. But also feeling like if we can figure out a way to make this report a little bit more comprehensive and captures more of the pieces that were insinuated by Commissioner Scobin, that would be useful and I think sit better in general. And I do just have a question on the disposition code. Do we feel like that will help improve the ability to report more clearly moving forward, or at least help identify these responses better?
Well, I think it's a professional way to maintain the records of exactly what the calls are. Obviously, wasn't something that we used even last year. But now that we do have this type of activity, it's important that we do capture it with the correct title and the ability to actually go down in the drop-down menu and put in exactly what it was. This doesn't mean that we're still not going to search with the other keywords. This is just in addition to what we are already doing.
In the search, does that include other languages that may reference any kind of immigration enforcement?
I'm sorry.
So when a caller calls in, if they're speaking another language, our RTO that is typing in the comments of the caller is typing it in English. So regardless of how it's interpreted or how it's brought in, it's still typed in the comments in English. So the keywords that we're searching for in English is the most comprehensive way to do it.
So there will be a translation of even casual use of like
Yeah,
La
so
Viga,
the
and then they
person receiving the phone call, if the caller is Spanish speaking, then we'll have a Spanish RTO taking that call.
Okay. I think what I'm asking is, so I hear that, is if there's like a casual use of a reference to a federal agent. Someone in another language might not say federal agent. They may use slang or other ways. Like as long as we're clear that that's translated and being captured as a federal agency response call.
So our RTOs are trained in translating relevant and important data into the comments of the call so the officers know exactly what they're getting into to the best of their ability. So I believe that would happen. And now, is it 100% guaranteed? I can't say that, but the training is that they will put those terms in the comments of the calls for the officers to see. And I would believe that when somebody says immigration enforcement or any of those terms in whatever language that our RTOs or our PSRs will key on those keywords, because to me they're keywords, they'd put those in the comments of the call.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, though, it also includes the comments that the officers are inputting as well. So regardless of what is reported to the RTO, the police, the police service representative, the officers who respond will also enter comments, or the supervisor who responds will also enter comments, and so they may include the words immigration enforcement or agent, things like that. So the search terms will be captured anywhere in the incident log.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both for the report. I had a couple of questions. I'll first ask the Office of Inspector General, and I think that my fellow commissioners asked a lot of good questions about like searches and how you're doing it, and I do think having a disposition code will help hopefully identify those searches immediately, and then on top of that, do the search codes so that things don't fall through the crack. In terms of the, so there were no reported incidences since ED 17 and then the department's notice that came out in March. But when you looked at the prior incidences, I think that there were, you mentioned was 8 incidences. Did you find compliance in terms of supervisors being on scene and I think you mentioned one thing about not all the video was tagged. Can you just elaborate, remind me what those findings were?
Yes, so of those 8 incidents, 5 required a supervisor to respond and to be dispatched in accordance with their existing policy and ED 17. And on 4 occasions, officers responded. So there was 1 call for service in which an officer did not respond and should have. And in terms of video evidence, we found that officers aren't doing a great job in accurately tagging and titling their body-worn video, digital in-car video. They're supposed to put their incident number and federal and title the video federal enforcement action. I think they're the exact words. And on all occasions that did not occur, 4 out of the 5 incidents for which there was video were not, all the videos were not properly tagged. So it's not to say that all the videos Some were, but some were not.
Got it. And I'll ask the department, how have you taken this feedback from the Inspector General to kind of make sure moving forward that the supervisor's called on scene and also the tagging is done properly?
Absolutely. As we do with any other policy, when we are made aware of any policy violation, we'll reach out to their supervisors, their division, and ensure that they take appropriate action, remind the officers of department policy, document the training if that's what they had, and just move forward with their, depending on how many times that violation of policy has done, the division will take appropriate action. But I've personally made phone calls to other bureau deputy chiefs, advising them of these errors or this lack of policy adherences that they describe.
Yeah, and especially knowing that there's something that will be reported for April, I want to make sure all the steps that are supposed to be taken are taken and make sure we're learning from any gaps that are happening that need to be resolved so that everyone understands their obligations moving forward. And for the OIG, you mentioned kind of reviewing body cam videos and other types of videos. Were you able to kind of see identification, like that these were federal agents clearly from the videos, or was there discrepancies there?
So in a couple of the cases from the January incidents, in all cases, there were no agents on scene when officers responded. However, witnesses at the location provided officers with video or photos of the alleged suspects or the involved agents. In not all cases did officers properly upload. They're supposed to upload those videos into evidence.com and correctly tag and label them, but in all cases they weren't. But in 2 cases, I believe they were. So we were able to identify that it was in one case, I think it was a border patrol agent. Or in another case, we were able to verify based on the body-worn video and the discussion the officer had with the witness showing them the video. They would say, here's my video, it looks like it's an agent with whichever agency.
Got it. And so for moving forward, if there are officers who actually arrive on scene and there are federal agents actually present, then you'll be able to see their body-worn video and whether or not identification can be captured in that regard in connection with kind of in compliance with the LAPD notice. And just, I think my fellow commissioners kind of hit it in terms of like, what is being reported and what is not being reported in this particular report. And it looks like there's a comprehensive search for calls for service by members of the community. This doesn't appear to include, and maybe it's because it's a separate in compliance with ED 17, it doesn't really talk about, calls for help by federal law enforcement or, I think you mentioned that this isn't about if there's a demonstration involving the federal building, and that's not what is included here. So just so that we understand, this report just captures the calls for service from the community in connection with purported immigration enforcement actions. Is that correct?
That is correct, exactly correct.
I would add that if it would also, the search terms would actually capture any requests by agents for requests for service as well. And then the department would be required, if when they arrive at scene to the situation, if a community member reports any sort of unlawful conduct by an agent, the department would be obligated to take a report and share that at, under ED 17.
Great. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions from my fellow commissioners?
I guess my question is, for the sake of just more information on this report, is there a reason why we don't include in the report all those calls for help or calls for service? Also, to the extent there's times when the department is notified of a enforcement action that's going to take place, and we document that or log that, it'd be, I think, helpful for the community and us to know, how many of those are happening on a monthly basis as well.
I'll give you just an example of some of the things that have occurred in April. Some people will call and they'll say that their ICE is conducting some sort of operation. The officers will respond to that location, do an investigation, but it's not ICE, it's another agency operating in the state of California that wears the same color uniform. In cases like that, we do respond, we look at it, we do an investigation, but that doesn't meet the elements of ED 17. There's really nothing to report. That other agency has the right to operate anywhere in the city also. So even though we do get calls for it, it doesn't meet the elements of ED 17.
I understand that, but I think what we're asking is for the sake of the sensitivity of this issue, we have a standing presentation on a monthly basis from you on this. You know, what additional information beyond what's in ED 17 or 12 makes sense to include on this report to have robust dialogue on? Are we doing everything that we can? How do we improve? And where there are mistakes happening or things happening, you know, how do we solve them? So I think that's kind of what we're getting at is, I mean, again, you know, 0 calls from the public. I think there'd be a line of people here next week to say that there were issues that they saw. So just trying to get a more accurate, representative picture as to what's happening so that we can have meaningful dialogue on it.
We can take a look at that. Thank you.
And we can always look at like educating the public. So if you are getting reports of a specific, you know, California agency that is being confused for ICE, I think that's an important thing to tell the public that this is actually, you know, enforcement by another agency. Any other questions?
Pretty much an echo of what you just heard. I think for me and for the folks who are concerned about our transparency in this process, I think it would be important to have, as we receive it, the information, the number of actions that ICE has taken, wherever it may be, in front of a courthouse, in someone's personal home, on a job site, wherever it may be, whether there is a report of suspected unlawful activity or not, that we are aware. And I think that's a helpful bit of information to have in this report because it establishes a baseline of what we know and where we're receiving that information could be identified. And then from there, we can then drill down into any of the unlawful occurrences and observations or investigations that occur. Okay. But I think it's important that we be able to say we are aware of what is going on in our city and that we responded and how we responded and what we learned from that response.
Absolutely. But this actual report was for ED 17, but since the commission wants to refine that search and that report, we could do that next month. I could work with the executive director and we can make that happen.
Thank you.
Does the Inspector General have any other comments or thoughts?
I just hearing the concern about data capture. Our office has been working with the department to try to refine and provide input on how they perform their search. And so we wanted to make sure that members of the public who flagged an incident that they believe should have been included or incidences that should be reviewed, we have the capability to review body worn, all the source documents, the investigations. And so if there are those incidents that folks believe that should have been captured, please reach out to our office. And we will work to implement the feedback that we heard from Commission today, and we'll work with the department to, again, this is not a static report. We will provide further information and integrate comments that we hear from others. And as we learn things that could be helpful to the department, we will flag that for them and then include that in a written product.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions? And is there go ahead, Commissioner.
Not a question, just maybe added to the report if possible is, you know, in the event that LAPD is notified by ICE of an upcoming issue, that the number of those be included in this report as well.
And can I ask Chief Choi that my understanding is that that does not happen, that they do not notify the Department of Civil Immigration before it happens.
At times they will, but it's not a complete data set per se. Some agents will, some agents won't. Sometimes we hear about it on, through a radio call. Sometimes the agent will call the watch commander in advance, but there's no consistency there.
Thank you. Okay, with that, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
So there's been a motion, and I'll say the motion to take the board action, and that was made by Commissioner Scobin, seconded by Commissioner Tabor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll say aye. Motion passes. And we'll see you again soon. Hopefully there's not a need for more frequent reports, because that will mean that there isn't as many actions happening. But thank you for the report, and thank you for the Inspector General. Okay.
Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 5, election of officers.
Thank you. And President Sanchez-Gordon is sorry she could not be here at today's meeting, but she has informed the mayor's office that she would like to step down from the role of the president, but looks forward to her continued contributions to the board. So she will be remaining on the board, but that means, okay, thank you. To the extent, all right, everyone who's disrupting the meeting, please leave the meeting. Okay, ma'am, we're still conducting our meeting. Thank you. With that, that now creates a vacancy for the president and the vice president roles. Would any member of the commission wish to nominate anyone for the role of president?
I would like to make a motion.
And
I'd like to make a motion to name Raja Shields our next president of the police commission.
I'd second that motion.
I will abstain from the motion. Secretary, will you?
Are there any other nominations for president? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to close the nominations for president?
I make that motion to close.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, those in favor of closing nominations say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Those in favor of electing Commissioner Shields as president say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Congratulations, President Shields.
Thank you so much. And will you do the next position as well? Thank you.
Nominations for the office of vice president are now in order. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Tabor.
Commissioner Tabor is nominated. Is there a second for this nomination?
I second.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? I see none. Is there a motion to close the nominations for vice president?
Motion to close.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor of closing nominations say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Those in favor of electing Commissioner Tabor for office of vice president say aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. The ayes have it by unanimous vote. Congratulations, Vice President Tabor.
Thank you. And I look forward to serving all of you in the community in this role, and I look forward to working with Vice President Tabor in this role. And the commission will now recess into closed session to discuss items 6A1 and 6A2. Thank you all. Okay, the commission has returned from closed session, and I'll ask the Executive Director, Mr. Sibley, to please report on the closed session items.
Thank you, Madam President. So item 6A, the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners on April 14th, 2026 During the closed session, the board made the following findings by 4-0 votes. So 6A1, officer involved shooting 015-25. For tactics, tactical debrief, 2 police officers, 2. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 2 police officers, 2. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 2 police officers, 2. And case 6A2, or item 6A2, which is officer involved shooting case 017-25. For tactics, tactical debrief, 2 police officers, 2. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer, 2. For intermediate use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer, 2. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer, 2. And that concludes the readout.
Thank you. With that, I move that we adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.